On your Monday episode of Locked On Raptors, one thing I'm not thankful for after the long weekend is watching Raptors preseason basketball.
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on? And welcome to another episode of Locked On Raptors, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It is Tuesday, October the 15th, and I'm your host, Sean Woodley. We cover the Toronto Raptors going on 11 seasons on various platforms. You can find all my work over on the bad website that sucks, at Woodley Sean. You can find the show on Instagram at Locked On Raptors, and you can join us in the Locked On Raptors Discord server, link in the description of the podcast. It's free to join as always. And it's a great little community we got building around the show. Not even little. We got tons of folks in there. Lots of fresh faces. We would love to see more fresh faces ahead of the new season as well. So please join us over on the Discord. It's the place to be. Damn it. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. And also a reminder, you can find the show for free wherever you get your podcast. Follow, subscribe, rate, review, tell a friend. We're on the audio apps and we're on YouTube as well. Thanks in advance for supporting and rocking with us all the way through what hopefully is a season that is more entertaining than the preseason basketball games we watched over the weekend. Here to talk about those preseason games, the position battles at play in Raptors camp, the good, the bad, and the and the debut, of course, of Scottie Barnes, who played both games over the weekend that we're catching up on now after the long Thanksgiving weekend. It is our pal, Vivek Jacob from Sportsnet and Raptors in 7. Big V, how are you? And when are we going to abolish this preseason nonsense?
I'm doing well. Good to see you again. Preseason, I feel like this one is just dragging on for so long. Like,
yeah,
especially
you play
like
one game and then you have 5 days off. What's that about, man?
Yeah, and then you've got teams like the Celtics playing back-to-backs. And
very cool, very smart.
So it's all just very weird and strange and. I think maybe there'd be more excitement from the Raptors perspective if, Quickly was involved, if RJ didn't get hurt. And, I think some of that plays into it for sure. Obviously not being able to see Jakob Poeltl yet. So when you have the energy
here, unbelievable, man.
When you have the energy that the last two games have brought, it starts to feel like a drag real quick.
Yeah, man. Look, the Raptors lost a couple preseason games. It was a fake close game against the Celtics and their third stringers on Sunday. You can be upset about the first half if you want to be. I'm not kind of in the market for getting upset about anything that happens in a preseason game. I don't think it matters. I don't think it's an NBA basketball environment in which we're evaluating these guys. Yeah, maybe you would have liked to have seen them have a little bit more juice at the point of attack defensively or convert some very, very makeable looks in that first half against the Celtics as well. We're not going to think about that preseason game at all once we get into the regular season. So I'm not going to sit here and get mad about the results. I am going to get mad about how, how endless the preseason seems to be, how redundant it seems to play all these games. And I guess just for me, before we get into Scottie Barnes, just a bit of a soapbox for me to hop on here. The NBA is super, super in on, getting guys to play as many games as possible, trimming down back-to-backs. It's about maintaining these guys, making sure they're on the floor and also available to play in games. It's like the single biggest challenge facing the league. Why are we doing a 3-week-long preseason when you can just trim that by a week and a half and probably cut out 1 to 2 to 3 back-to-backs from every team's schedule and start things early? I don't know. I don't make the decisions. I'm sure there's all sorts of reasons that are dumb. But yeah, that's just kind of where I'm at. Let's cut the crap with the preseason and play 2 or 3 games. That's all we need, man. And I'm with LeBron James. Why are we doing cross-country travel for preseason games that don't matter? Who the hell knows? Either way, one thing that did matter from the preseason games over the weekend, Big V, was Scottie Barnes getting into some action after missing the start of camp in the first preseason game. On Friday against the Wizards, he goes 7 of 15 from the field, 0 of 5 from deep, but he goes 7 of 10 on his twos. That's nice. 8 boards, 1 assist, 2 steals, 5 turnovers, certainly ironing out the kinks a little bit after 7 months without playing basketball. Then you have the game against the Celtics where Barnes goes 5 of 10. Pretty quiet, pretty nondescript for him. Not much in the way of playmaking. Just 2 assists, was a minus 27. Again, don't care. But overall impressions of Scottie Barnes in the first glimpse of him after a very, very long time away from the floor.
Yeah, it feels like the highs have been high and the lows have been low. I think
Sure.
he's had stretches where he hasn't looked good and he's had bad turnovers and the decision making leaves you wanting more. And then he's had stretches where he's looked really good. And he's looked like, the Scotty Barnes that we want to see night in and night out. And so I think that's going to be the challenge for Scotty this season. It's just upping that consistency, upping that sort of intensity throughout the game. And I think we've seen even defensive stretches where he's been all over it and, he's trying to get his team going. And then there's stretches where maybe he hasn't looked as engaged.
Sure.
So yeah, from a play standpoint, I think, there's been those plays where he's been active defensively, getting into passing lanes and then getting out in transition and getting himself easy buckets. There's been opportunities. We saw it against the Celtics where he was able to post up against Peyton Pritchard and get some easy looks. So getting mismatches like that has worked out in his favor. And then we've seen him knock down a couple of mid-range shots. We haven't seen him knock down the 3, but I think that's at least something to look out for moving forward is, how much has maybe that mid-range come along, if not the 3.
It's a pretty big deal. Talked about it on Friday's show, the sort of idea of Scottie Barnes improving his shot creation, which he talked about on media days being a thing that was a focus of his offseason and a focus coming into this year. And yeah, like if he's going to become a more prolific shot creator, that mid-range is going to be big. The mid-range working pick and roll is going to be super important for him getting there, right? I don't think he's the kind of guy where all of his shot creation has to come from one set kind of play. Obviously, he's got the post-up game. He's got the pick and roll stuff he'll be able to work with. I'm sure there's some ISO stuff they can tap into and mismatch hunting once in a while, especially when games kind of get down to the wire and you're just looking for easy, low risk possessions. That's all going to be part of the equation for a shot creation this year. But I do think that sort of stepping into the mid range and keeping defenses honest and kind of giving that threat of knocking one in from 18 feet is very much step one for him as a pick and roll creator. And it's not like he's starting from scratch. Samson Folk, our pal, wrote a great piece about all this pick and roll stuff over at Raptors Republic. You can go check that out in written form. But there's just that's just kind of the first step in becoming a prolific pick and roll creator is making teams worry about you knocking in shots, whether it's from 3 or from the mid-range. And yeah, I thought he goes 11 of 19 on his 2s over those 2 games. It's pretty encouraging to start. Yeah, the 3s weren't falling. I'm not worried about that at all. The fact that he took 5 in his first game, happy to see that. He's still eager to take them. A confident Scottie Barnes is going to hit shots at some point. And even
everything
if it's
is fine, Sean is back.
You're damn right he is, baby. It's the preseason. Everything is fine because nothing matters yet. So we haven't had anything dashed, any of our hopes and dreams dashed. Scottie Barnes taking 3s is really important. Like that's for the functionality of this offense, for the changing of scouting reports so that teams actually worry about him as a shooter. He was a 39% catch and shoot guy last year. That's not nothing. Yes, it was super hot at the start and very cold at the end. But if it all comes out in the wash at 39%, you're laughing at that over the course of a season, especially if you can get up to 4 or 5 attempts a game. So yeah, it's a big part of the deal. I'm glad to see he was taking him in that first game. Hopefully he keeps on doing it. But yeah, the 2-point stuff, very, very nice to see coming out of the gate that he can knock down those middies because that's going to be a really big part of the equation for him this year. Any other broader takeaways? I mean, the defense looked wretched, particularly against the Celtics. This is what the preseason is for. It's for ironing out kinks. It's for learning and being, and sort of accepting the things that aren't working well, reshaping them, whatever it might be. I'm not that concerned. I don't think anything's happened so far in the preseason that has changed my perception on this team whatsoever. It's the preseason. And I think we all expected this team was going to go through some pain at some point.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I knew I wasn't going to have any big takeaways as soon as I saw that, the Celtics had no one out there and you had this game that was a laugher by the end of the first quarter. So, in terms of grander takeaways, not really. Like you look at some of the individual stuff that we can get to later. That's probably about it. But beyond that, nothing big.
Yeah, it's also like, again, they're playing without 4 or 5 rotation guys. So we're not watching representative NBA basketball. It's the preseason. Oh, but they lost to third stringers. Yeah, third stringers who are more likely to try their asses off to make the team, while a lot of the Raptors guys are secure in their spot. Yeah, it's fine. Sean is back, baby, and we love it. All right, we're going to come back on the other side here, Big V, and get into some position battles. The starting 2 guard, the backup point guard spot, backup center, the last roster spot. Some interesting developments, I would say, in all those different regards. We're going to get to that coming up in just one sec. Today's show is brought to you by our pals over at GameTime, the single best place to buy tickets for the sporting events you want to go to. And of course, it's not just sports. You got theater, you got concerts, you got comedy. It's all there for you to go and peruse over at GameTime. GameTime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. They just tell you, hey, this is the best deal. Buy this one. And you can go do that. Of course, when you click on those tickets, you get seat views, which is a wonderful thing, especially if you've not been to a venue before. You get to take advantage of that panoramic seat view so you know exactly what you're going to be looking at when you sit down in your seats. No surprise giant pillars in front of you. With GameTime, it's a great thing. You get all-in pricing. Just toggle that feature on, and it'll show you the total right up front. No surprise fees at checkout. Super handy, of course. And they have GameTime ticket coverage. Your coverage is covered with the most. Your ticket is covered, that is, with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime Picks. Download the GameTime app and create an account and use the code LOCKEDINNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDINNBA for $20 off. Download GameTime today. What time is it? Well, it's game time, of course. Back at it here with Big V, Vivek Jacob from Raptors in 7 and Sportsnet here to talk a little about position battles. We've got a few on the go. I wouldn't say it's like the most dramatic preseason from that perspective. It's pretty low stakes stuff in a lot of these cases, or it's kind of preordained in some others. But I think the performance of some guys could potentially call into question what we thought might be the roster going into the season and how it was going to take shape. Let's start with the shooting guard spot. I think we've all kind of agreed Gradey Dick is the clear favorite to get the 5th starter spot when this team is fully healthy. Obviously, if RJ Barrett can't go to start the season, that'll be another starter spot open. Hopefully we see Emmanuel Quickley as early as tonight, and there's no more concern there. I'm not concerned. I think it's going to be great. I'm looking forward to Emmanuel Quickley. But when it comes to that 5th starting spot alongside Barnes, Barrett, Quickley, and Poeltl, has anything from Gradey Dick's preseason changed your perception there? Looked really good in that first game, was hitting his 2s, missed his 3s. The inverse in that game against the Celtics, kind of a mixed bag against the Wizards. It was nice to see him knock down 5 of 10 against Boston, though. Any sort of change in how you view Gradey Dick's candidacy to be the Raptors' 5th starter out of the gate?
The only reason you would consider not starting Gradey is if suddenly the organization has flipped script and said, we are going to prioritize winning. We're going to prioritize defense. And so we're going to put, Davion Mitchell in the starting lineup. I think this is a season of rebuilding. This is a season of development. And so as a result, the lumps that come with Gradey starting, you're willing to work through it. And so obviously defensively, there's going to be concerns. But in terms of actualizing what his ceiling is, this is going to be a season of, taking some lumps, taking some good, and just working through it and trying to help him get there. And so, I do think Gradey as the starter is the best way to go. Does that mean I expect to see him play 30 minutes a night? No. Right. I think even when we were playing out the rotation, I had him at about 24. And so I wouldn't mind seeing him, start, but also be kind of managed in terms of how much he's forced to take on. And that's where you have a Davion Mitchell who can come in and play some minutes there. We'll see what Jakob Poeltl looks like once he's healthy. And so I think that's a way to help mitigate some of the load, some of the burden that he takes on as a starter.
It's a well taken point. And honestly, I could even make an argument that Gradey Dick also gives them a better shot to win in the starting lineup than Davion Mitchell, because it allows them to lean into the thing that they have a chance to be decent at, which is offense. And I don't think this team is going to be a good defensive team. As much as I think they're going to be more of a pain in the ass to play against, that's great. I think the defensive talent's just not quite there. I do think they could be a pretty good sort of above average offensive team, at least when their sort of core lineups are out there. And Gradey Dick's dynamism as a shooter, as a cutter, allows for that to happen in a way that I just don't think Davion Mitchell does. I think that starting five could really struggle with Davion Mitchell out there. It's just not a lot of shooting. Two total non-shooters in Mitchell and Poeltl, at least by how the defense regards them, is tough to get over, especially if RJ is only taking sort of wide open catch and shoots that aren't super like worrying for the defense either. And Scottie, obviously a willing shooter, but defenses don't quite care there either. I just think you need that space that Gradey Dick provides to just give this shot, the team the best shot to be good at the thing it has the best chance to be good at. So yeah, I'm still with you, fully in favor of Gradey Dick starting. The 2-point stuff, obviously, been a struggle the last couple of games, but I think we saw enough in Summer League. We saw enough in that first preseason game to suggest he's not going to go, what did he go from 2 in this last game? 1 of 8? Like, he's not going to go 1 of 8 from 2 all the time. He's got a little bit more to offer than that. So yeah, I still think Gradey Dick is the guy to start for me. And I don't even know if there's really a close contender, truth be told, at least in the way I look at it. The backup point guard spot, Davion Mitchell feels like he's going to be the guy who gets that job. Jamal Shead is, I think, the guy most people want to get that job, because who doesn't love Jamal Shead at this point? Both guys struggle at one thing, which is shooting. And I think, you know, the struggle, they're very similar players, right? Really good on ball defenders. Both have some passing chops. I think I've liked a lot of what I've seen from Mitchell as a passer. I just have concerns, Big V, about Davion Mitchell as a guy who can really run offense, as someone who just like never gets paint touches. When he gets paint touches, good things happen. He had 2 buckets over the course of the last 2 games, both of which were him getting into the teeth of the defense and scoring around the rim, which he's always been very good at throughout his career. But he just doesn't get there enough and doesn't turn the corner and pick and roll to really make things happen and put pressure on the defense with his own penetration. And I think that is a limiting factor for a backup point guard. I think Jamal Shead has proven he's got a little bit more of a juicy first step to get to the rim, even though his finishing's been a little bit here and there. He's gotten a line, I think, 10 times over the last 2 games. I think for like just pure doing point guard stuff, Jamal Shead is taking the boxes a little bit more than Mitchell is for me. I'm wondering what your read on it has been so far through the preseason with those two. And it does still feel like Mitchell's going to get the first crack, but I don't know. I don't know how long that's going to last for a guy who can't really seem to put a whole lot of his own offense on the board while admittedly doing a nice job creating for others.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much further ahead Shed is in terms of being able to get into the paint consistently. I know it's happened more so far, but I think part of that is also because Davion Mitchell is a known quantity and teams are happily sagging off of him. And so it's tough to get into those areas. Whereas with Shed, I think they're playing him a bit more straight up, and then they're kind of learning on the fly that it's like, oh, this guy can move pretty quick.
He also can't shoot. Wow.
and so we've seen those situations where he has had to take the 3, he has had to take the mid range, and it does not look good. And so I do think if he were to get more of an NBA opportunity, those warts would show and more teams would play off of him. And then we're looking at the same problem. And that's why they are similar players. And so, yeah, for me, there's not too much of a debate. It is Davion Mitchell. I keep wanting to say Donovan Mitchell, especially
would be nice.
Then there'd be no debate at all. So yeah, I do think it is Davion Mitchell's spot to lose. But yeah, I do think there are some nice positives in Shed's game. And I think if anything, the last game-ish has helped to just maybe normalize expectations a bit more compared to where we were with Shed after the first game.
Who wants to do that? That's no fun. We want to declare him better than Steph Curry and Steve Nash and all the best point guards of our time. That's just what we want to do. Yeah, look, I think Mitchell's going to get the look. He keeps on getting the starts. I'm just not like, I'm not going to be too broken up if they decide, oh, you're a 2 guard, because I do think that's just where he's best. I think, yes, there have been some nice flashes of passing. How much is that passing really doing much if the defense is staying entirely at home because they're not worried about you? Like there's that. Yeah, I guess I'm generally unenthused by the Davion Mitchell on the ball experience. Maybe there's time for that to change. I do think he's got something to offer as an off-ball player, especially if he can shoot the way he did last year, which again, very low volume. It's got to be higher volume than that. He's actually got to hit them, which he hasn't really done so far. But yeah, I mean, this is the battle they'll be fighting at the backup guard spot all season. There's no perfect answer right now, the way this roster constructed. Very cool. Backup center. I think Chris Boucher. Is he the guy right now? Like he's been, 22 against the Wizards. I know he's not really a center, but he's 6'10". They don't have a lot of those kinds of guys kicking around, and he has been pretty effective so far in the preseason. Is Chris Boucher the incumbent back up behind Jakob Poeltl right now? And if not who? If not him, then who?
It's interesting you put it that way because I was looking at it more from a perspective of the minutes between Mogbo and Boucher. And I think that's the way we've kind of seen things play out. And so at the 5, I do think it's Yak and Kelly. I think those are the two. And then,
Kelly's they probably view Kelly as a 5. I view him on defense as like he's got to be a 4 on defense. It's a little bit hodgepodgey in terms of like where guys fit in. But yes, good point.
Yeah, if by 4 you mean 5 on 4 on defense, then yes, I agree completely.
Yeah. This is mean. He's got to step back, man. Leave him alone.
So with Boucher, I think it is about playing minutes at the 4. I think his energy has been awesome. I think he's maybe fitting into what Darko wants to do a bit better, and that's why he's getting a bit more of the run. I do think it's a good safety net for Mogbo right now as well, where it's like, okay, Boucher is there. When you have your good moments, we can ride it. If not, we've got this vet that we trust, and we can roll out there. So I would say, again, like probably until the second half of the season, when you're probably going to be all in on development and saying, okay, let's just play Mogbo all the way. I think Boucher is going to figure into the 4 more than the 5.
Yeah, like I said, I think the roles are sort of amorphous outside of Jakob Poeltl when it comes to their front court guys. I think Scotty Barnes will get time as a small ball 5 and as a 4. I think Mogbo will be a 4/5. It all depends who they're playing with, right? And what end of the floor they're on. So forgive me for putting them into narrow silos, I guess, off the top here. But yeah, I do feel better about the big man rotation seeing Chris Boucher play the way he has. I think there's, maybe that little stretch he had before he got hurt last year was not a fluke. Maybe the fit actually does make sense, and maybe there's a role for him to have. He's a good offensive rebounder. We know this. He's got the length and rotations. On-ball defense, not so good. There was a moment, Big V, in that game against the Wizards where he got erased on a screen by Jonas Valanciunas in a way that I don't know if I've ever seen someone get erased on a screen. And Jonas Valanciunas has done that to many guys over his time. But like Boucher's chasing Bub Carrington over the screen, and then he just kind of gets absorbed into the chest of Valanciunas, and Bub has a wide open 3 that he misses because Wizards. But he has like a 3. He's got 30 feet of room to work with. It was pretty amazing stuff. So yeah, maybe less on ball, Chris Boucher defensively, keep him around the rim, but otherwise, yeah, pretty encouraged by him. And he's eager to take threes. You're worried about 3-point volume. He's the guy to help with that.
Yeah.
Very quickly here, last roster spot. We know that Bruno Fernando's on the unguaranteed deal. He felt like the favorite coming in to get that spot. I also think there's a very real chance that Branden Carlson's 2-way spot gets converted. I've not been super impressed by Carlson. I don't really see a pathway to him playing minutes on this team. And a couple of guys have looked pretty decent, namely Jamison Battle. I've thought looks pretty good. That 3-point stroke is butter. I don't know what else he does, but he has a nice 3-point stroke, and this team needs shooting. Jamias Ramsey's looked pretty interesting as well. Had a couple nice flourishes here and there. We know the Raptors already got a look at him last year. What's your read on that last roster spot / 2-way spot currently occupied by Carlson? I don't think DJ Carton or Aldous Shea are going anywhere. So Carlson feels like the guy, if there is going to be a 2-way guy who gets cut loose. What's your read on that right now?
So I will say I have not been impressed with what I've seen from Bruno Fernando so far, but I do see him just staying on the team by nature of what the Raptors' needs are. When you look at what they're going to prioritize at the guard positions, it's hard to see Ramsey squeaking in there. And so I think that's where you mentioned there's already solidity in terms of what we know what's going to happen with DJ Carton. And so I think Ramsey might end up just being the odd one out there. Carlson, I'm with you. And so, yeah, I do think it just ends up being Fernando as that type of big who, when he is playing his basketball, gives you something different than what Yak and Kelly give you.
Yeah, if nothing else, Bruno Fernando, pretty good rebounder, and like he's just kind of like an F stuff up kind of guy, right? Like I've said it before, he might be the single least graceful offensive player I've ever seen play basketball, but he's kind of got, he's just got like a little bit of mean. He's got some size. He's got some broad shoulders to work with. Like there's something there. Again, it's not sexy by any means, but I do think the last roster spot should be his. And I do think Jamison Battles probably earned himself a two-way deal with this team. I like he shoots the hell out of the ball. You need shooting really badly on this roster in particular. Will that mean anything? Will he play any time with the team? I don't know, but I think he has a way more useful skill set to what this team right now needs over Branden Carlson. But if it's just Carlson keeps the two-way job, I'm not going to throw a big stink about it. This is back of roster churn at the end of the day. We're going to come back on the other side. Big V, close it out with the good, the bad, and the from a pair of preseason games over the weekend. Maybe we'll talk about Vince Carter as well, as he was, of course, inducted into the Hall of Fame. We'll do all of that coming up in just one sec. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel, the #1 sportsbook in North America. And NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. When you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you go and place your bets. If you're the type of person who loves to make in-game bets, bet on what the next play is going to have in store, FanDuel is the place to go do it. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Win or lose, you just throw some bucks down, make $5 bet on whatever it is. And if you win or lose, no matter what, you're getting $200 in bonus bets to go play around with on FanDuel and all of the stuff that you can go throw money down on. I'm not much of a sports wagerer. I've said it before, but when I do get into it, it's usually on like a hunch of a season-long futures bet where I'm like, I think that team's going to go win the championship. I think that guy's going to go win the MVP. If you are like me and like to do that as well, you can go do that at FanDuel. Go check him out. That's FanDuel.com. $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. The official sports book of the Locked On Podcast Network. Wrapping things up here with Vivek Jacob from Raptors in 7 and Sportsnet with the good, the bad, and the our favorite post-Toronto Raptors game segment here on the show. It's got a great name. Everyone agrees on it. It's very well named. We're going to talk about a thing we liked, a thing we didn't like, and a thing that's got us a wee bit intrigued from the latest in Toronto Raptors basketball. Let's begin with the good, and I think, Big V, you're not talking about the basketball at all, which is probably wise.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Vince Carter, officially a Hall of Famer. It was cool to see the moment, for him to dress up in purple, to see the Raptors logo, for him to shout out the Raptors and specifically say that I'm going in as a Raptor.
Yeah. We love to hear that, baby. Just hooting and hollering at Casa Deshawn.
So I think all of that made it a really nice moment. Wasn't the biggest fan of the speech, but he did it his way, and he just wanted to thank a bunch of people. I thought there'd be a bit more storytelling, but maybe he will save that for November 2nd.
Ooh, we got lots of Vince content coming up, which is why we didn't devote a whole segment to this. Like, there's plenty of Vince talk to happen. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I thought you were gonna jump onto your point.
Oh yeah. Yeah, very cool. Love Vince. Love the speech. I mean, the speech was fine. Look. Do I really ever watch Hall of Fame speeches? No. Does that make me a bad basketball fan? I don't think so. Speeches are boring. They're the worst part of every wedding you've been to. So except my wedding, you were there. They were good speeches. Anyway, awesome to see. Lots of great, montages of dunks, which is really what we do all the Vince Carter celebration for anyway. Plenty of Vince stuff to come as we get closer to Vince Day on November the 2nd, which is very exciting. My good. Just going to shout out Jakob Poeltl. Looks really damn good. 14 and 13 against the Celtics. Very tidy, 10 points in 20 minutes, 5 of 7 shooting against the Wizards. I think he's building some nice pick and roll chemistry with Mitchell, with Shed, with Scottie Barnes. Really excited to see him play with quickly. Like, God, I just want to see it so bad. I miss IQ. It's very cool. I want to see him play. Hopefully, we get to see him tonight. I'll be at the game in person, hopefully, for his preseason debut with the team. Either way, I think Jakob Poeltl looks excellent, and I continue to think he is in line for a career season, just with the way this team is set up around him, for him to succeed, for him to accentuate a lot of what the other guys do well. I'm big on the Jakob Poeltl train, and excited to see that he's playing well early here in camp after not having a very good start to last year's season. What's your bad so far in the, I guess, from these two games over the weekend here, Big V, other than gestures broadly at all of it?
So I think the bad is initially I was gonna say it's Darko,
Okay,
but I think I'm gonna make it a bit more general in terms of the way the bigs have been kind of attacked in pick and roll or just
sure.
screen action in general. And so, I thought the change the Wizards made, and obviously this is all within the
You
context
are
of
breaking it
preseason.
down. Preseason game-to-game adjustments, you sick perv.
No, but the change the Wizards made from the first game to the second was they moved JV out of the starting lineup and they had Sar playing the 5. And as a result, they were able to drag Jakob Poeltl out in a lot more actions. And I think that's something that teams are going to be looking to do with 5s who can stretch the floor. It's like, hey, guess what? If we get Jakob Poeltl out near the perimeter, we feel like we have a pretty good chance of getting to the bucket and not being intimidated when we're there. So I thought that worked for the Wizards a bit, and kind of that opened up their opportunities to like drive, kick, get all those threes. Then what I criticized Darko for in the Celtics game was you had a big in Keita who does not shoot the ball, but yet you had Poeltl, sticking with him on every screening action.
Right.
And so you saw, whether it was Gradey Dick getting screened out, whether it was um, whoever was involved in the screening action, they were losing a step, and Jakob Poeltl was out of the play. And so it's like, hey,
Right.
this is a big that does not shoot the ball. Just ice it, just trap it, whatever. And then, someone like Lonnie Walker, that's who I was thinking of. Lonnie Walker. He's not a good passer. So why not put that pressure on him, to make a pass?
Sure.
And so I think that's something that I would look at and say, hey, was this a scheme thing where Darko is looking at it and saying, hey, when we go up against an Al Horford, when we go up against a Kristaps Porzingis, this is how we have to play it. And so I want you guys to get used to it. And so just play it that way, regardless of who the big is. Or, should this have been a scenario where it's like, hey, like, this is how we want to play this type of big. And Keita is not the same type of big as Al Horford or Kristaps Porzingis.
Sure. Yeah, that's man, deep preseason X's and O's. We love to see it here. Yeah, I'm fascinated by like how they want to use Yak as sort of a base defense this year, because I do think he's more scheme versatile than he gets credit for, and I do think a lot of, to your point, a lot of when he gets exposed, it's the guards kind of letting him down in fighting over screens and whatnot, and kind of corralling ball handlers. I think in general, like I have no problem Yacht coming up a little closer to the level of the screen than, say what they would do with Kelly, for example, or, they used to bring Jonas Valanciunas up real high back in the Dwayne Casey days, which drove me crazy because I just didn't think it was it for him. But I think Yacht's got a little bit more fleetness in his feet to be able to do that. But yeah, I think it works best when complemented by a Mitchell or a Shed, or hopefully quickly. I'm really excited to see if there's been advancements in his on-ball defense and his tracking over screens and staying glued to ball handlers, because I think that is it's probably the most important on-ball defense development for this entire team, considering how much he's going to play at the point of attack. So yeah, certainly a thing to keep an eye on, and hopefully it's not something that they're married to. I think Darko has shown a capacity for adjusting if things aren't working well. I think back to the Pascal stuff last year where they were totally not utilizing him, and they realized, wow, we should make this guy a big part of our offense, and then things got a little bit better. So hopefully this is the whole thing with Darko, right? We have no real track record to know exactly his approach to adjustments, because last year was a season you could not adjustment your way out of. It just didn't have the guys. So I think a pretty important thing to watch for sure. A good call by you. My bad. Look, man, Ochai Agbaji, just like he's on the floor a lot. I don't really know he's on the floor a lot. He's just kind of there in a lot of cases. I want it to work for him, man. Seems like a lovely dude. Really rooting for it all to work out in some way here for Ochai, but man, it's and I get it. He's starting in lineups with Davion Mitchell in the backcourt. Like, there's just not a lot of juice, not a lot of space. There's not a lot of optimizing of what he does, but can't hit threes, it seems, at least not in a regular clip. He doesn't do a whole lot elsewhere. I think the defense is fine-ish. Like, I don't know, man. I want to see this, like, this such a big stretch for Ochai in his career coming up here. Fascinated to see what they do with his option on Halloween as well. A guy to keep an eye on for the last couple of preseason games for sure, but not been super impressed with what I've seen from Ochai through the preseason. He looked okay in the first game. Last two, not so much. Let's get to the I'm going to go first here with a little bit of Jonathan Moboganda. I'm in. Jonathan Mogbo. Loving everything I'm seeing. Yeah, there's some stuff around the rim. He's not finishing everything. Sure. Don't care. He throws cool-ass passes. He rebounds everything in sight. A really impressive rebounder for a guy who's a little undersized. He gets up. The arms are there. The wingspan really does him a lot of good in that regard. 8, 10, and 4 in the game against the Celtics. Thought was a big part of the stretch where they played probably their best ball in that game as well. I am super in on Jonathan Mogbo as something. I don't know what. Is he going to play rotation minutes? Who knows? But 6'7" dude with passing chops. The interior passing from him is really encouraging. Really nice to see. He's racking up assists just by being on the floor. He's grabbing and going. I am super in on Jonathan Mogbo. I don't know what it means in the modern NBA to have a guy who can't shoot but does everything else, but damn does he do everything else. So he is my I'm all in. Jonathan Mogbo. Never mind. That was terrible. You pick up. What's your Big V?
You know what? I'm just going to roll with you.
Hell yeah. Let's go.
No, it was a really fun stretch that he had against the Celtics, and he was kind of all over that run that helped them cut it from like 30 to 15.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
And, you talk about the passing. He had that one pass in semi-transition, like right through the middle of the floor. The bounce pass.
What sound did you make? Impromptu, what sound did you make? What sound did you make when you made that pass?
Ooh.
Me too.
Synchronized reactions. Here we go.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So I think seeing those type of passing chops from a guy his size is super encouraging. And then what I've most been impressed by over the course of the games is he is someone who plays within himself. He's not someone who has tried to do too much. And I know I've heard some stuff online about, this is like a calm version of Precious. And and you can kind of see it, right? And you see some of the decision making. He's not someone who's going to force the issue. When he grabs the ball, off the boards and he's pushing it, you kind of feel comfortable with him doing it, even as you're like getting to know him as a player. And so I think that's really encouraging. And then, yeah, for me, the big thing is, can he knock down a shot? Can he do enough to just keep himself on the floor? And then defensively, how well can he go up against fours and maybe some of the threes? Yeah.
Yeah, he's going to be asked to do, I think, some interesting stuff on defense just because no one else is his size or his length. So, yeah. Super in, man. He might just be the all season long until we see him just get into regular games, at which point he'll be the good every night. We'll leave it there. Thank you so much for hanging out, Big V. Sorry we went so long on preseason basketball games, everybody, but I hope you dug it. Anything you want to promote for the good people out there?
Usual stuff. Raptors in 7 is in full flow. I've had takeaways on the first couple games. I figured with the blowout that was on Sunday, I would wait to see how Tuesday went and maybe do a combined takeaways. That might be better. Wise. So yeah, you can look forward to that Wednesday morning as we adjust from the long weekend. And besides that, I'll have more NBA preview stuff going up at Sportsnet.
Awesome. I'll be back tomorrow. I'll be at the game tonight, Raptors Celtics. Hopefully it's less of a drag than that one on Sunday it was. Subscribe, follow, rate, review, all that good stuff. It's appreciated when you go and do that. We'll talk to you again on Wednesday. Another episode of Locked On Raptors. Thanks for hanging. Bye-bye. I'm 5 of my last 6 here, Big V. I'm on a godlike heater. Let's see if I can make it 6 of 7.
Oh,
baby, he's on fire.